All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is the 74th episode of the UNSECURITY podcast. The date is April 6th, 2020, and I'm Evan Francine. Joining me is my co-host, Brad Nye, along with our special guest, Jim Nye, or Jim Nye.
Jim Nye, the science guy.
Jim Nash. Good morning, afternoon, Brad, Jim. I'm all out of sorts. How you guys?
Doing good. How are you?
Not too bad. Good day so far?
Yeah, Mondays are always just so busy, so.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the show again, Jim. How you doing?
Thanks for having me back.
How you doing today?
You know, it's not too bad. Been a little crazy and busy, but we're good.
Okay. Now, do you remember the last time you were on the show? It was a while back.
I think it was close to the beginning of the year, or maybe towards the tail end of last year. We talked about things and stuff.
Lots have changed since then.
Just a bit. Just a bit.
We'll catch up on all that good stuff. It's customary that we start the show kind of checking in, and we've already started that a little bit. Brad, this weekend, Jim, what's going on? What have you guys been doing?
I'll let Brad go first.
Yeah, I just trying to get some time outside of the house. We did a bunch of, kind of some landscaping, pulling weeds, things that have been nobody really wants to do, so they get pushed off. And I was like, all right, let's just do it. Let the kids got to play outside, so getting some fresh air.
Yeah, the weather was nice this weekend.
Yeah,
saw a lot of motorcycles on the road.
yeah. The sun feels great.
Yeah, Jim, what have you been up to? You've been all over town.
I have. So for the listeners, they may not remember, I'm also a state representative, which I believe is what we're going to be talking about some of today.
Yeah.
But I've been trying to spend time driving around the community, doing takeout, and I post videos to Facebook and Twitter and elsewhere, because I'm trying to help people understand that they can have some semblance of normalcy, that they can still do things like restaurant takeout and support those local businesses. I've been helping a couple of small businesses that are responding to the PPE crisis. There's a company in the city of Carver, which is in my district, and have been helping them go from never having made PPE before to now they're producing 2.5 million plastic face shields a week. And I help them clear the way with red tape, and then also introduce them to a bunch of people that I know across the country, and they're getting orders every single day for millions of these things. So it's been busy, but it's been a lot of fun.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen your videos all over the place. What restaurants or retail establishments did you visit this weekend? Do you
this weekend I went to Da Vinci's here locally in Waconia. I was also at a place called Etc., which is in Waconia. Yeah. I've been to coffee shops in Victoria, in Brad's neck of the woods. And I try to do something every day. And, the weekends I typically tend to take off just because I can't eat that much takeout. So, so we've taken a couple of days off here and there.
That's cool. So I built a chicken coop. Have you guys seen it?
I bumped into your wife as you were getting chickens, and she was laughing. I actually posted a video about that too.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, so she bought chickens, and this weekend, you do what you're sort of told, and I was told to build a chicken coop, so I did.
There you go.
Yeah, you should come over and see it sometime.
Come over and eat your chickens.
No. Those aren't those kind of chickens, and my wife would get really mad about that. All right, well, let's get in. So, Jim, we did invite you to the show for a couple of reasons. Number one, we do like you. I voted for you. Brad, he's new to your district. He'll vote for you. We've already talked about this, right? Yeah.
I think he might have last time.
I'm gonna keep it guessing. I'm not easy. You gotta earn my vote.
All right, we'll keep working at that. But the second thing we want to talk to you about is, get your perspectives on COVID-19. You have a different perspective than us. You work in government. You're our state representative. So you're dealing with kind of everything, right? I mean, I can't even imagine how many questions you get and everything like that. So I wanted to get, first, let's just talk about what's going on in the Minnesota state government around COVID.
Sure. So I was just on a bunch of calls over the weekend, and we're meeting remotely for some of the committee work. But I think one of the things that this has been a great lesson for is understanding what it means to have a remote workforce, and how does that relate to security. I was on the phone call with our state CIO, Tarek Tomes, and he and I had a private call, and then we had a group call with a bunch of other legislative leaders. And I will say that this was a wake-up call for a lot of people. Most folks think that just working from home, you bring your laptop home and you jump on your network and everything's going to be just fine. And we all know that that's not the case. But for a lot of state workers, that's been a huge wake-up call. And there's a lot of oh, I didn't know that moments going on. The state is the largest employer of people in the state of Minnesota. So most of those people are now working at home. And that brings with it, at the very lowest level, equipment. Most of these people don't have a laptop issued. So they're trying to figure out how to make that work. And he told me very honestly that some folks just took their desktop home with them. They put it in a box and off they go. And security is, if not secondary, possibly tertiary in some of these people's minds. So I think that folks like us sort of preaching out into the world the need to understand that possibly at the flick of a switch, people may all have to go home and work from home. And what are the security implications of that? And that's what he and I talked about. And I will tell you that they're doing a nice job. I will say, I think somebody who's maybe doing it better, Evan, you and I met with the state CIO from North Dakota. Yep. He and I had a phone call about a week and a half ago. And literally in the flick of a switch, they stood up thousands of VPNs and they just did it seamlessly. I was very, very impressed after I left that call.
That's cool. That's cool. So are all the government offices shut down now?
Well, not everything is shut down. There are some people who are working in their office. These are usually people who are commissioners or other, but for the most part, yes, everybody who is a state employee is working from home. Tomorrow, we're having floor session to move a bill, and there will be some people who will be at the Capitol, and the House of Representatives will be socially distanced. But because I'm intrigued by it, I'm going to be one of the people who's voting from home, and I want to give that a test run and see kind of how it works out. The problem from a constitutional perspective is one that we talk about all the time. How do you know that Jim Nash is actually the one voting or acting on whatever it is I'm supposed to act on? So that'll be interesting. And the questions that I've been bringing up are around security. One, how do I log in securely? We're going to be doing Zoom meetings just like we're on right now. But, how do you make sure that, one, I'm the person who's on the line, and how do I prove that? Is it facial recognition plus a token plus a secure log on? It's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Yeah. The plus is, there are systems out there to handle that type of thing. If you look in healthcare for, prescribing controlled substances, right? The doctors do have tokens, and they have some ways to ensure that that's done. Now, the downside is nobody thought of doing any of that stuff for these things because this is unprecedented. So,
yeah.
Well, you're exactly right, Brad. And the thing that I'm curious about is there's 201 legislators. How do you make sure that you've got the proper system and the right backbone and all the proper credentials and the tokens and all of that? And then I think one of the simple nuts and bolts things is you've got people who are in the 7-county metro, and that's great because the connectivity here is good. But you've also got people out in Roseau County practically in Canada. And
Right.
that's a different backbone up there. And, we talk about broadband all the time. It's not very good up there. And if you've ever been on vacation up in northern Minnesota, you know that if you get onto a network, it's pretty clunky.
I mean, you almost think that internet becomes almost like a utility at this point. It's a requirement.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, and not just that, but in times like this, I suppose you have an increased number of meetings and communications have to be, I mean, there's more communications and they're more critical, right? So this is the wrong time for things to go down.
Oh, completely. And, I was just on a public safety virtual committee hearing, and to say it was clunky was being generous. And if we are supposed to move meaningful legislation, again, the security aspect of it for me is a concern, because we have to make sure that the person who holds the election certificate is the one that's voting. And, for the public, we also have to make sure that the transactions that you're doing are secure.
Mm-hmm.
There are thousands of people who are filing for unemployment insurance as we speak. That's being overwhelmed right now. And one of the things that they're looking at doing is creating sort of a chat experience for people who are trying to get into the system. And I have concerns about that too. Is how do you make sure that that's a secure connection, and that somebody who is honestly trying to get some help from the unemployment part of the state doesn't wind up getting screwed.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and so are they actually doing that? I mean, are they coding that now, or is that something they're still discussing?
No, they're working on it right now.
Okay. Now, do you get daily briefs from the state on kind of what's going on with COVID and any new current issues?
I do. I get a couple of daily briefings. We get a huge amount of email from the state and from other folks, and lots of conference calls. And on top of that, I'm doing a lot of constituent email and stuff. So I'm getting yesterday alone, I got 400 emails, and that was a Sunday. On a daily basis, during the work week, I'm probably getting about 900 emails a day.
And that's up from, what was it before? Is it doubled, tripled?
It's probably tripled. I'd probably get about 300 emails a day,
Okay.
many of which were from people who are saying, hey, I like this bill, please vote for it. I don't get those now, but right now I'm getting, my business is circling the drain. What can you do to help? And it's been my commitment to make sure I answer all of those. And it's been a lot, but you take a lot of conference calls from people, and we've all been there. You're listening to people who are at their all-time worst. You go from this flourishing economy, and you're a small business, and you're working away, and next thing you know, you hit a brick wall because everybody's at home. Mm-hmm. And a lot of folks are having some mental health issues. And I know that's a huge issue for you, Evan, is just the notion of being cooped up, but also for a business owner who's now, they can't operate. I have a lot of folks who are people who are not on the essential list. And keep in mind that roughly 76% of people in jobs are considered essential.
Oh, really?
But yeah, there's a plus or minus, but the number of people who are not considered essential, those folks are just, they don't know what to do. So they turn to folks like myself, and we're trying to help them out.
Yeah. Wow. So now I've sort of liked the way Minnesota's handled things. I'm a resident here. I like the clear communications that come from government. I think Governor Walz is doing a pretty good job of communicating and getting out there. Is there any prediction on, or what sort of timeline are you guys operating on, if any? I mean, do you expect this to last months, a year, more?
Well, I'm not an epidemiologist, and there's a lot of good reasons for that, but I wish that we could say,
Yeah.
but right now there's an executive order that's in existence to shelter in place. It lasts for a little while longer. My expectation is that it'll be extended.
Mm-hmm.
And that for the specific reason of trying to, as we've all heard the overused term, flatten the curve.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to make sure that the peak doesn't hit our hospitals. And Minnesota has been very fortunate as it relates to the spread of this virus. Our neighbor to the east has not. Wisconsin has had a huge number of cases. And I think, and mind you, the governor and I are not in the same party, but I will say Governor Walz has done a pretty good job. That there are some things that have been, as I call it, ham-handed, but they are open to our input. They listen to us when we call and email. I've got a great relationship with our lieutenant governor, and again, we agree on very few things, but we take each other's calls, and she has been, and Governor Walz has been pretty good to work with. And for example, they had not allowed funerals to move forward. And I had a couple of constituents that said, hey, Representative Nash, I need your help. And what I did was called into the administration. I said, look, you've got people who are experiencing a very bad time in their family, and they need our help. If we can provide a way to let family mourn, as we all do in a funeral, then that's something that's important. So they changed the executive order to allow for a funeral party of 10 people. And usually funerals are bigger than that, but that was at least a step in the right direction to allow people to do that.
Yeah. So other states, so you mentioned Wisconsin, I think it seems like, Milwaukee and that whole area over by Lake Michigan is kind of the area that seems to be the hottest spot in Wisconsin. What are you hearing from other states? Are you hearing anything that seems to be working really well? Any, kind of, really creative approaches, or is everybody pretty much kind of doing the same thing?
I think people or states are typically doing the same thing. We're having a hard time, obviously, being from a very free society where you can go out and pretty much do whatever the heck you want, to now being told that unless you're an essential employee, you're not going to work, or you're working from home like all of us at FRSecure are doing. Mm-hmm. But it's causing, I think, a couple of things that will be challenged afterwards, like the ability to, or the inability to go and travel freely. Mm-hmm. And there have been a couple of examples in other states where folks are getting arrested for being not in their home. And, none of us have would volunteer to live in a communist state. And I've been to communist states back in the day when I was going to school over in Europe, and it's not a basket of fruit. It's not good. So we got to make sure that we don't deal with folks very heavy-handed, and make sure that we're respecting, so for example, if you and your wives and kids decided, I can't take this house anymore, I need to hop in the vehicle and I just want to go take a pleasure drive. Well, there are some places that may get called into question, and that's difficult. It's a fine balance that we have to achieve.
I think the biggest issue that people are struggling with is, if we didn't do anything, the numbers were going to be like catastrophic in terms of deaths. But when you lock down and prevent the spread, the numbers don't look as bad as they would have been. So people are going, well, see, it's not as bad. Well, yes, because you're locking down, you're not doing it. If you look at the infection rate and the death rate, if we hadn't done it, it would have been, that's going to be way worse on the economy to lose, 5 to 7 million people than to be closed down for 5 months or 5 weeks. It's 5 months.
Yeah.
No, but
I can't take 5 months of working from home, Brad.
Oh man, that was 5 weeks. Sorry.
Yeah.
But
no, I think you're exactly right. You're exactly right. And this is one of those things where science is science, and you have to say, okay, if I eliminate the opportunity to be in close proximity with people, then the transmission rate's going to go down. I mean, it's just math.
Right. We're already seeing that
And
in Minnesota.
Yeah, and I liken this to the cybersecurity issues that we all talk about. Is if you want to or shrink your probability of compromise, what do? You shrink the surface of attack.
Yep.
And that's what we're doing, is we're shrinking the attack surface by sending people home and having them work from home, and gain 15 pounds because they're eating a lot of takeout and stuff. But
Yeah,
I think the thing that we have to remember is that the state of wherever you might happen to be is trying to prevent longer term negative repercussions. So none of us like to be told, well, Evan, you gotta stay at home. Evan's kind of a free-spirited guy, right? I've known you for a long time and you're a pretty free-spirited guy. You don't like being told you gotta hunker down and go nowhere.
I don't like being told anything.
Well, that's true. That is true. But when you consider that this is bigger than one person, that's where this becomes really important. I think of the fact that I love going to our office because it's, pretty much for the first half hour of a day and the last half hour of a day, everyone's just sort of wandering around, chit-chatting and talking to one another. And we all care for each other a lot at FRSecure.
Yeah.
We haven't been able to do that. And that's kind of a drag.
Yeah.
Because we are social animals. That's where this problem becomes very profound. But
yeah. Well, that's the big thing that, for me, you're right. Mental health is a thing for me because, numerous reasons. I've lost very close friends. And I think, we won't really know if we made the right call on a lot of things until this is all over. The data that we've seen has been so variable. It's been all over the place. It's hard to know which data is good data and which data is bad data. So you make a lot of decisions, and some of the things that we don't know yet is how does this affect, chemical, abuse? How does it affect, suicide rates or depression or anxiety or any number of other things? Because those are also effects, right? I understand locking down, the virus could kill you or your mind could kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely been tough. And I know, Jim, you got a bunch of kids running around too, and it's hard on them and it's just stressful for everyone. So
yeah, let's hope it gets over soon.
Well, and I'm an eternal optimist, and I like to look for the things that are good. What I have seen is more people out for walks on my street than I've ever seen before.
Mm-hmm.
I took a bicycle ride a couple days ago, and Evan, that's where I bumped into your wife.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a bunch of on-the-spot videos of people saying, look, just because we're practicing social distancing doesn't mean we need to practice social alienation.
Sure.
And that's the important thing is we are told, hey, go huddle up in your cave. And some people do just that. And they go inside their cave and they sit in their Barca-lounger or their recliner with a huge tub of cheese balls, and they don't go anywhere. Well, that's not helpful. Under the executive order, you can still go out and walk around. In fact, you're encouraged to do so. I'll tell you, my dog, Hazel, here is laying next to me. She's been on more walks than she's been on in months. So those are the sort of things that we have to do.
Yeah.
I know that we've done virtual happy hours at work here,
Mm-hmm.
and those are great. But that's what's going to get us through this is taking care of one another.
Yes.
And I think, well, Evan, you're about to do this this podcast or a webinar for people.
Mm-hmm.
I think things like that too. There's so many questions from a security perspective to bring this all back to security.
Right.
There's so many questions about, well, is my employee set up to be a secure remote worker?
Mm-hmm.
Are we doing this right? Are we putting our company at risk? And at the state, and in conversations I've had with other CIOs and other people like I serve on the cybersecurity task force for a national group of state legislators.
Mm-hmm.
This is a frequent topic of conversation: is what are state employees doing? I mean, if phishing and smishing were a big deal before, they're becoming way bigger now.
Right.
We've heard that there are more thousands of attacks through phishing emails.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're doing is they're doing it to state employees and all employees, but they're doing it to employees who are naturally curious about what's going on with COVID. I mean, either one of you might want to talk about the map, the interactive map that it was infected with malware.
Right.
That's what's been on people's minds.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. When it happens, I mean, even this is a much larger scale, but even the smaller scale, catastrophes and incidents always raise the frequency of attack, right? And they leverage current news events, right? It's sensationalized. People panicked. People seem to be panicking less. They seem to be settling in a little bit more. But yeah, the attacks will still keep coming hard too.
Yep.
So, but there is no silver bullet. We get asked this a lot too. We get asked, well, what's the one thing I can do, to really protect myself at home and, through all this? The attacks are not any more ingenious than they've ever been, right? A phishing attack is a phishing attack, right? There's different variants of phishing attacks, but it still requires you to do something as a user. If you're using single-factor authentication, that's still a problem, just like it always was. It's just the problem is exacerbated because so many more people are doing it, and I'm not paying attention, right?
Yeah, yeah. The kids are bugging you for lunch, and you're trying to get stuff done, and somebody clicks something they shouldn't have.
Right. Because I haven't seen I haven't seen any attack that I'm like, wow, that was innovative. Never seen that one before. They're the same attacks. They're just different flavors now.
Yep.
Well, you did see the attack that has malware embedded in the interactive map, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It takes you to a malicious Android app that encrypts, ransoms your phone.
That's what you get for using an Android. You should be running. I wonder if any of the AV for Android, did any of the AV for Android catch that?
I haven't seen. I don't know.
All right. Well, let's get on. Let's talk. So one of the security things that's sort of new or top of mind, I guess, is Zoom. I've never seen a company in the news so much with false information, just crazy stuff as Zoom in the last 2 weeks. Have you ever seen anything like it?
Oh, no, not at all. This is, I mean, and for what they're having, they're not critical or high risk when you actually look at what all their vulnerabilities are.
Right. So Zoom, during the, at the early stages of the pandemic, the CEO, made it known that he was going to make Zoom available for free to all education. Right. And that was a big piece of it just blowing up in popularity. Plus the fact that people needed something, there's still a free version of Zoom, right? Or even the paid version isn't very expensive. So now I can go get a good teleconferencing service that's stable. And they did a great job at architecting because I haven't had any outages. I've heard of people having outages or issues with stability, but I haven't witnessed any of that myself. Have you?
Mm-mm.
So you had this huge rise. It went from, I don't know how many users to how many users.
They said December they were at 10 million users a day, and in March they were at 200 million users a day.
Yeah, and I've heard that they've peaked over 300 million users a day. So to go from 10 to 300 users a day, you've got to have a pretty elastic architecture to be able to support that. I don't know. There's no way they would have load tested that for 300 million users.
How could you?
Right. So good job to them. And then there was a bug, right? It was a 0-day sort of bug. allegedly an ex-NSA hacker. Well, at least that's what the article tells us.
Right.
NSA in air quotes. With a UNC vulnerability, right, that would allow you potentially, in the right conditions, to steal credentials.
Right. It's
Right.
still required user interaction. It's not like, they could post this and suddenly everybody's credentials went whoop right to the attacker. You actually had to click the link and go and follow it. And they fixed it, 36 hours maybe?
Yeah, within 36 hours. And then the message was really crystal clear too, right? There wasn't any, it was very transparent the way they handled it.
I think Dave Kennedy had a really good point in that they're now dropping these exploits without giving any notification to companies.
Right.
That's not how security researchers have worked in the past. It's usually you report it, let them fix it, and if they don't respond in a certain amount of time, then you can, you'll see them go public. But to just be like, hey, there's this problem and make it public before you alert the company that's borderline irresponsible.
Right. He claimed that he did try, didn't he? He claimed that he did try to contact Zoom and Zoom didn't return his message or something like that. But then he thought he was doing the public good, right?
Yeah.
So many people are vulnerable to this thing. We should make it public. Yet Zoom's been around for quite a while. And even with the 10, million users or whatever, it was going just fine. I don't know if it needed the urgency that it got, but it's good. It was, did get their attention.
Well, and I want to be clear. I'm not saying Zoom is infallible here, right? They definitely had some issues, but they've corrected it. The end-to-end encryption piece, it was misleading, I would say. But from what their response looks like, it doesn't look like it was intentionally misleading, and they're fixing it.
Right.
Changing the language. So, I mean, if people, you see like the New York public schools are saying, oh, we're not going to use this, but they'll use Google or they'll use Facebook or they'll use, right, these other companies that have a history of doing it. If you're going to say that these are security issues you're not going to go with, you just shut down. Don't use any technology because these aren't as bad as a lot of the ones we see.
Right, and they've all got workarounds, right, except for the end-to-end encryption. But
at the end of the day, the end-to-end encryption is if you're using a Zoom app, like the browser or whatever, it's encrypted. It's if you call in, it's not encrypted.
right.
I think the bigger issue on that one is they consider their servers an endpoint in that. So it's not, hey, our connection is encrypted just for the three of us. It does go through their servers.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there is some concern around that, but he even addressed it and said, we don't decrypt it. We can't decrypt it.
Right. Well, and what's the likelihood of somebody, getting that information anyway? Right. It's not a trivial attack. It's not something that's going to be easy for. It's like these things that are conceptually it could happen, but practically it doesn't.
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
I think school districts have a much bigger fish to fry than this.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Well, I think school districts right now are I have been hearing from and reached out to some friends to help, but the Schoology application is bogging down and very, very twitchy.
Mm-hmm.
What I did learn is that it is on a popular cloud app or platform. I can't say which, but that the cloud folks are trying to help Schoology build out their tech better. So it's not a resource issue. It's not the platform issue. It's that the app itself was not built to handle this many kids on it all at one time. It's going toes up pretty regularly and you get the blue screen of death, but that it's not the platform that it's on. It's the actual architecture of Schoology itself.
Yeah. So my daughters just went back today officially, and they've done a couple of the teachers did Schoology meetups, and a couple of them did the Google meetups, And already this morning, they've said the Schoology ones they hate them. The
Yeah.
use of Google, it's just so much easier.
Yeah.
I mean, Cola even, Ryan was talking about this last week. It's just there's not a lot of money going around, so people just make do. It works. Why fix it?
Yeah. Very true. And then there was the Zoom bombing.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially seeing, how it affected children, right? With, a lot of anti-Semitic and racist comment where attackers would just bomb, get into Zoom meetings that were unprotected. Pornography, displayed at, to children. It got so bad that the FBI actually, issued a warning about Zoom bombing. But this isn't a vulnerability,
No,
right? I mean, it's a vulnerability, but
it's a misconfiguration.
due to your misconfiguration, right? It's not a bug.
Well, it's like, so the one in your article there, the Alpine School District in Utah, they posted their Zoom link on Facebook. I mean, it's like, oh, come on.
I like seeing you get fired up, man. I knew that one was.
I don't usually tweet a lot, and even you caught me over the weekend. It's like, oh, the Washington Post misled, and they've been really good on their coverage. And it was like 15,000 Zoom meeting recordings are available online unprotected. Yeah, because people took them off the Zoom servers and stored them in unprotected buckets.
Right, in Amazon.
What are you gonna do? That's bad. There's so much uncertainty. We don't need more FUD out there.
Right. Well, that's, and when you look at, I mean, you and I have been in security long enough to have seen many breaches and things like that. And so far, everything that I've seen, related to Zoom isn't enough to make me move from Zoom. All of this, yes, nobody's ever infallible.
No.
They had a bug, they fixed it. The other things were configuration problems. So configure your stuff better. I was going to say a bad word. And use the technology.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Right.
So, so then from the Zoom bombing, and there were, almost endless stories about Zoom bombing. And sure, yeah, it's easier to point your fingers at Zoom, right? Or point your
yeah, no accountability. It wasn't my fault I didn't configure it properly.
Right. So you had all that, and then you had, the mistaken routing through China. That was probably
that's not good.
That was probably not good.
That's not ideal. Like I said, they're not without fault here.
Right. But so that in that one, the CEO, came right out and said, we made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't try to, brush it under the rug or anything like that. It was a legitimate mistake. So you have two things. Now, none of these things would have really been called out if Zoom would have been just kind of chugging along at 10 million users, at a time. But the fact that we got up to 300 million, now everybody seems to, be focusing on Zoom. Then we had the overreaction. So we had people calling for you shouldn't use Zoom at all, right? It's insecure. Okay, well then get rid of Word, get rid of Excel,
right?
Get rid of SharePoint, get rid of every web technology you've ever used before, right? New York schools, like you alluded to earlier, claim that, they're not using Zoom anymore. They're not permitting the use of Zoom anymore. So it's in which technology are you going to use that's going to compensate for your crappy configuration?
Mm-hmm.
Carrier pigeon.
Yeah. We can intercept one of those though with a shotgun, right?
Clay tablet?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, what's interesting on so going to the New York one, they don't have a contract with it. So they're using the free version, which doesn't have some of the management, but they're saying, they're going to go to Microsoft Teams, which indicates they're an O365 platform. Why wouldn't you use that to start with?
Right.
I think that's very, I would question some of their decisions on that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's funny how people generally want to use a free technology, and then when the free technology that doesn't come onboarded with the, say, pay for the same technology but at a higher level of security, they throw their arms up and they say, oh, well, this is awful now. What happened here? Well, there's a greater level of service when you subscribe to something and you pay a little bit of money. And Brad, as you said, the free version doesn't come with all of the things that you would like it to have.
Right.
So don't be a moron, sorry, but don't be a moron and say, well, this is bad and we should bash these people, when you yourself didn't set it up right and you yourself chose not to subscribe to the full features of what's available in particular in Zoom.
Just even things like central administration to enforce the password requirement.
Right.
You don't get that in the free one because it's not centrally managed. That's kind of the whole point.
Now, was the education version made free by, I mean, I know that the Zoom CEO or Zoom made Zoom for free to education. Does that include the paid for version? I assume it would, because otherwise what's the net?
Well, that would be interesting. No, I think they were just saying it was the basic account. They just got rid of the time limit.
Oh, all right.
So you'd still have just that very, limited amount, but they didn't have a contract with them, a central contract.
Right.
I think that's more kind of the big issue. I've been very happy with, like I said, with Zoom, with what they've provided and their responses.
Mm-hmm.
You got to take some accountability to, make sure you're doing the right things. These are the fundamentals we talk about all the time. It's what's pissing me off.
Good for you, man. I like getting you kind of pissed off, because in the morning, you notice that I'm tired, right? So I'm here rubbing my eyes, trying to get through the rest of the day. You seem to be getting fired up as the day goes on. I'm a morning guy. You must be more of an afternoon guy.
Yeah, I've always been a night owl. So getting up in the morning has been a requirement with kids and getting stuff done, but I definitely get more done in the evenings.
Good for you.
If we could shift all of our work to the hours of 11 p.m. to 4 in the morning, I would get a lot done with people. Yeah. I like to be up late.
Yeah, you're a late guy too. All right, so then we had, people were claiming that Zoom is unsuitable for government secrets, as are most commercial technologies anyway, depending on what you call as a secret.
Right.
The FTC, a senator, which senator was it, asked the FTC to investigate Zoom's deceptive security practices or claims. Which senator was it? I gotta find it.
I don't know. But a politician looking for headlines? Jim, that never happens.
Sherrod Brown? Do you know who that is?
Some politicians just need to do a little bit of research before they decide to have a press conference.
Yeah, Sherrod Brown, Ohio.
No idea.
Democrat, Ohio, Senate, powerful Senate Democrat.
Well, I don't know how powerful they are. They're in the minority, so.
Well, let's not go there right now. I'm just kidding. All right, so the FTC, so Sherrod Brown sent a letter to the FTC asking for an investigation. We seem to like doing investigations of Zoom's deceptive security claims. And then, sort of around this same time, so if you read kind of what's going on, if you take a wider gaze at all of this, around these same times, Facebook, there's an article that comes out that says Facebook wants to take a bite out of Zoom video's growth.
Because they've got a great track record on privacy and security.
Right. And then Ring Central, gets into the video chat game. Cisco, there's an article that says, is Cisco a safer remote work play than Zoom? And then you've got Skype, an article. This article is forget Zoom. Skype unveils free Meet Now video calls.
Except Microsoft just announced to all business that Skype is going away, to quit using it, go to Teams. So now, what are they supporting it? What's going on from that side of it?
Whatever it takes to make more money. So, and I wonder if all of this, kind of crap, or what percentage of all the crap that Zoom is catching for seemingly insignificant things,
Mhm.
things that should be fixed, but not things to cause panic. How many of these things come because there's influences from some of these bigger at the time, maybe still bigger companies who want a piece of that pie?
Yeah.
They have connections with the press. There's money that exchanges hands, I'm sure, under the table for all sorts of things.
Yeah. Who knows? We'll just keep fighting the good fight and calling people out.
Well, just use logic. So the last part of this sort of Zoom talk is just using logic and reason. And it was nice to see you mentioned Dave Kennedy. Dave Kennedy, I think, was part of an article that went into the Medium.
Mm.
And the title of the article is "Zoom Isn't Malware." And publicly, and Dave Kennedy is very well respected in our industry. He's somebody that I look up to, somebody that I have always admired his research. He's a smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he claimed publicly that his companies use Zoom. So if he's using Zoom, if it's good enough for him,
I mean,
probably good enough for most of us.
right. Well, and it's like in the next one you have, Rapid7, some of these bigger companies. If you take those basic steps, the odds are, you can never eliminate risk, right? But you're mitigated. It's down. So that's probably not going to be your biggest concern at this point, is somebody getting in through your Zoom meeting. They're going to come in through somebody clicking an email, not through your Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's some good guidance out there. So the things that you want to do is obviously patch, right? If you haven't updated Zoom, I think it pushed automatically. So
Mm-hmm.
it was when you closed out of a meeting, it popped up and said, "Hey, you want to update your Zoom?" So if you're using the Zoom client, you would have gotten that. If you haven't, it's simple. Click on your little profile icon and check for updates, right? So patch, number one. Number two, there's articles all over the place on how you can stop Zoom bombing, right? And how to configure your Zoom meetings securely. Now, a lot of this stuff didn't affect at all webinars, right? So in Zoom, you have meetings and you have webinars. Webinars was a different thing. Webinars wasn't affected by
Right.
bombing because meetings are more collaborative where everybody sort of gets rights, you can share screens, things like that. Whereas webinars in Zoom, you have to request that or have to be given that, from the administrator of the webinar. So there you go. It's, I wouldn't move from Zoom. Nothing is significant enough to make me want to move from Zoom.
Realistically at this point, if these are the worst vulnerabilities that have been found after all the scrutiny they've been under, it's a pretty good track record.
Right. Can you imagine? No company in the last 2 weeks has been pen tested more than Zoom.
And they found some minor thing. Well, I don't want to say minor. I don't want to play it down too much, but medium at best.
Right. Yeah, and I would certainly be a lot more concerned if the response wasn't transparent, wasn't prompt,
Agreed.
if they were still dragging their feet, or sometimes you talk about Teams. How many times have we seen Microsoft sit on vulnerabilities for years
Mm-hmm.
that they've known about, that have been in the wild?
Right.
Where's the outrage for that, right? All right. So anyway, it's crazy. The plot, I don't know what to expect this week in with what's going on with Zoom, but it'll probably keep up.
I was going to say there's probably some new story that's come out while we're talking about it.
Right, for sure. So we'll switch gears. Let's talk about something else that's related. There is no shortage. I don't know if you've noticed, but everybody's going after, hey, you're working from home. Here's some security guidance for you. And most of it is good, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if people really realize that all these great articles that we write that we're writing with the home or the normal person being the audience, they never read it. Do you think any of the home workers are reading all this guidance on how to secure your home office?
No.
I think they generally assume that it's an IT problem that IT will just quote unquote fix it
Right.
for them. But I mean, and we talk about this all the time. You've got to take some ownership of this, and you've got to make sure that you're doing what you can for your personal responsibility perspective. And not to speak in overly broad, generalized terms, most people don't want to take personal responsibility for anything.
Right.
So, let alone security. They're like, oh, well, I thought that was Brad's issue. Brad isn't going to take care of security for all of us. Well, what the heck?
Well, you see it with the Zoom, right? I mean, when something bad happens, it's like they're pointing fingers.
Right.
Well, yeah, and the part that frosts my lemons on the Zoom thing is you're using a free app.
Right.
It's free. And now you're complaining about it because you weren't impacted, but now you're all paranoid. Oh, bad things probably happened. Someone stole all my information. Well, no, they didn't.
How many apps on your phone have you downloaded that give everything about your contacts and microphone? Yeah.
0.
Yeah. Well, look at some of the numbers on social distancing that they've been accessing, right? So they say, oh, well, we can tell that we're sheltering at home really well because of cell phone data. Well, where are they getting that data from? Just to Brad's point, because you downloaded a bunch of apps and you didn't read the EULA and you just clicked, sure, I want to play Candy Crush, let me in. And they're tracking you, dude. They're tracking you.
Oh yeah.
So you give away more in Candy Crush and other games than you are in Zoom. And yet you're now outraged over something that happened to a guy that you knew who told you that his best friend's sister's brother-in-law might have been or heard about being compromised with Zoom. Really? Come on.
See, that's awesome. We got both of you guys fired up.
Grr.
It's not working for me yet, though. I'm not fired up yet. Anyway, there's no shortage.
I'll come steal your chickens later tonight and get you fired up.
Oh no, that'll get me killed. My wife will. I don't want any part of that. So, so all kinds of guidance, and like I said, most of it's good. If you're into reading things, read it. There's no shortage, and like I said, most of it's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny how these people, a lot of these articles weren't there prior to any of this stuff happening, but you would expect that. I think everybody right now is trying to get their piece of the pie. What was, the healthy economy now has contracted so much that everybody's kind of fighting for every dollar that they can get. So, and I don't fault that. But one of the things that we did this in 2019, beginning of 2019, we created this S2Me assessment. It's a simple assessment. It's yes, no's, or not sure's. A lot of things you may not even know, right? Have you changed the default password on your router? I don't know, right? So you go through the assessment. And the reason why we built it is we built it before this whole COVID thing happened. We built it because, one, we understand that information security isn't about information or security as much as it is about people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the people at home were just sitting ducks, sheep being led to the slaughter, right? They just keep, and you already mentioned how many apps do we just install all the time without even thinking about the privacy ramifications? How many IoT devices do we plug into our, living rooms where we have some of the most intimate conversations ever, right? We don't complain and bitch about that, but we do about Zoom. Somebody potentially eavesdropping on one of my phone calls, which probably isn't that intimate.
Right.
So anyway, we built this for that. And we also built it because we know that people are creatures of habit, right? And so the good habits or bad habits that I have at home are going to be the good habits or bad habits that I'm going to bring to the office. Probably.
Right.
So that's why we built it. And then since then, it's gaining in popularity, which, you would expect as we go through all this stuff. But it was really good. And Jim, it was due to your, efforts to help us make it more known when it was put on NASCIO's website. So thank you for that.
You bet. Has that been generating much traffic?
I'm not sure. I'm not the marketing. I should go talk with Andy and find out. But it's good. It's good that it's a resource that was, it's been made available to all the state CIOs now. They know about it, and they can certainly use it, right? It's free. It'll always be free, which is sort of cool because I don't like being part of the money grab.
Right.
I don't like taking.
Yeah, I've spoken to a couple of CIO friends and made them aware of it, and also some folks in the business sector that are using it as well now that their folks are working from home. So it's been a great tool, and we've gained a lot of positive feedback from those people. So yeah, it's been good.
Good, and we're looking for feedback too. I mean, we're looking for, hey, this part stinks. This, I disagree with this. One of the things that we know is we don't ask enough questions about child safety. I think in the assessment, that's the one motivator that really seems to resonate with almost all parents universally, is protecting your children. I mean, do you know what apps their kids are using? I do, and Brad, I know you do. But how many of the people, just normal people, have no idea what apps their kids are using? And some of those apps are pretty nasty.
Yeah.
So the thing that we're kicking off today, it's every day this week at 5 p.m. It's 30 minutes. So people just, and if you can't make it, we're recording it. If you didn't make it into the webinar because it is sold out now, you can live stream it. We're live streaming it to YouTube and to Facebook. I've never live streamed out of Zoom before, but we're giving it a shot. If it doesn't work, I'm blaming Zoom.
There you go.
Right.
I know that we also made this available to a lot of the Minnesota municipalities through my contact at the League of Minnesota Cities. I believe that they're pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
And Evan, I know that you've been talking with my contact there. How's that going?
Awesome. Super nice guy. Yeah, we've had good communications back and forth. And so we're talking about, this current issue of, S2 me and helping people be more secure at home. But then I think there's a bigger play with how do you help cities without charging them a boatload of money? I mean, a lot of cities either have no IT department at all, or it's 1-2 people.
Yeah, and insert new politician joke here, but before I became a state rep, I was the mayor here in Waconia, and the IT sophistication level really doesn't exist past keeping lights blinking and some rudimentary backup stuff. So yeah, the information security is not usually a budget line item. And a lot of folks will look at their MSP if they're using that as a city. And as we all know, that's not something that MSPs put a tremendous amount of time into doing.
Right.
So.
True. But due to your, I think your work, that's one of the things, and I'm not, blowing smoke. I mean, truly, as I've seen you operate as our state representative, when I see you out on the street talking to people, when I see you out, patronizing businesses, when nobody else is, everybody else is scared, because you can still do takeout. You can still have a discussion from a distance, right? You mentioned, it's not social distancing, it's physical distancing.
Right.
Right. Still be social. We have to stay social. We need each other.
Yeah.
But to see you do that, and then to see your advocacy on information security at Minnesota, you mentioned, North Dakota and the contacts you've established with Sean Riley, the CIO there, the work you're doing with NASIO, just all that stuff, man. I personally appreciate it because I think it's all the right thing to do. So.
Well, I'm having fun doing it.
Yeah, it's cool, man. But then you got to get some rest, which you did last night.
I did.
Wink, wink.
Yep, I did. That's why we're recording in the afternoon, because I had to take a little bit of a sleeping pill to finally get some rest after days of not sleeping.
Yeah, good for you, man. You got to take care of yourself. So anyway, we're doing this safety and cybersecurity at home webinar series. And the reason why we labeled it safety, and I think we have ways to go to make S2Me truly a better safety tool, is because that's what resonates with people. I don't know how to get people's attention at home.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does come down to, and I'm not, using fear, but if you love your kids, if you love your family, you would love some security, I would think. Not like lock it down like Fort Knox, but am I doing the right things? Should I segment my Wi-Fi network? Should I change the default password? How do I patch my router? Blah, 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 right? I mean,
Well, and every parent I've talked to is all about it and saying, where do I go to find out how to do these things? So I'm right track.
yeah, I think so too. So I'm hoping the webinar series will go well. It'll be recorded. It will live stream it. But like I said too, I'm also looking for feedback. I think sometimes people are intimidated by security people. Do you ever feel that? Like people aren't telling you stuff? And it's like, why wouldn't you tell me stuff?
Well, Brad scares me generally.
Yeah. And people are scared of this beard. I mean, look at this thing.
Yeah. I think part of it is the, historically there's been a lot of people, security has kind of my way or the highway or talked down to people.
Right.
And you're seeing that approach from the corporate side to us trying to change that mentality and change the message.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get through.
That's what I love about FRSecure is that we understand that a lot of the people that we talk to are other security professionals, but then there are a lot of people that we talk to that they don't have any real knowledge about it, and they're looking to us to help them understand how this applies to my home. How does this apply to my kids?
Mm-hmm.
I was describing it to somebody when they were looking at our speakers bureau page on the FRSecure page. They said, well, Jim, what are the things that you would come out and speak to? And I'm not a CISSP, and you guys are. There are people that you guys can talk to and you'll connect, and I couldn't. And then there are people that I can talk to that you won't or can't because
Other
what you would
politicians,
tell.
are you kidding me?
What's that?
Other politicians, you kidding me? Hell no.
Well, but also just people who are non-technical people that, like I resonate really well with CFOs and other managers and people that I go to talk to. And just the difference between what the two of you would say to a group and what I would say to a group are very different. Mm-hmm. But the message is still the same. Security is important. Security is, we talk about it being a business issue, but we should be talking about it. Security is a family issue. And that message comes from everybody at FRSecure in one way or another. But I think one of the things that this S2Me thing has been able to do is to say, this is important to you, person in your home. This is important to your kids. And to Brad's point, traditionally security folks have been a little legalistic, and they walk into a room and they may be carrying a stick that they beat you with. And that's not a way to get people to be motivated. We have to say, look, this is important for the following reasons. And you give them some of those reasons. In my presentations, I tell everybody, if you have an Alexa, hit it with a hammer and burn it with fire, because it's just a huge exposure. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, but it does so many things for me. From a security perspective, I think their Internet of Things is pretty sketchy. Other people, if you have a high level of risk tolerance, then great, smoke up, Johnny. But I try to help people understand that security is something that you've got to take seriously at home, and that our tool is going to help you understand what your exposures are.
Yeah, very good point. And so one of the words that I keyed in on was motivation. You motivate people through, I think it's like Pavlov, right? I mean, where give them a reward or beat them with a stick, right? One's going to give you, one set of results one way. One's going to give you, so we trying to think through like, S2Me, version 1 isn't, it's good, but it's not all that enjoyable.
It's a version 1.
Right. But the version 2, we're trying to take the feedback. How do we make it more enjoyable? Badges, achievements. People
Yeah.
would do anything for a badge.
And I just think of the line from Blazing Saddles, badges? We don't need those stinking badges.
Exactly.
Just because that makes me laugh.
Yep. Well, in version 2, so version 2 is out in April, end of this month.
Very cool.
We'll play with that some more. Other news, the daily insanity check-in. Those have been fun, man. Better than I expected. Every day we have 15 to 20-ish people who show up, and it's always different groups. It's never the same exact 15 to 20 people. Sometimes, like Rod wasn't there the last couple times. He was back again today, and people would come and go, which I love it. And we've really gotten to know each other better. For me, it's good because it just feels like I'm out and about a little bit more. You know what I mean? Trying to cut that social distancing, and even though we're physically distanced.
Yeah.
What have you thought, Brad? Because you've been in some of them.
I've been in. I think the only ones I've missed are the Mondays because I have another meeting. But no, I like them. It's different. It's a change of pace. That's the biggest thing. It's the office banter type conversation that you miss.
Totally.
So
yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I miss like having Brad tell me my barbecue sucks and then his is better, which is
all
not
the judges
accurate.
agree. I'm just
But
saying.
it's not accurate.
You'll stop by, bring me some, both of you, and I'll but yeah, those are good. And if you're not, anybody can come and go anytime you want. It's daily insanity. What was I going to say about that? Oh, we learned about ducks.
Mm-hmm.
A lot about ducks.
That's Harlequins.
So you remember that? I forget that piece. So that's going well. The FRSecure CISSP mentor program. What was the last count that you had?
1124, I believe.
Yeah.
That was last week.
That's kind of crazy. 1,124 people are registered this year for the CISSP mentor program.
It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder how big that thing can get. You know what I mean? I wonder how many, and it's not big for ego's sake. It's big because that's how many people you're helping.
Right.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, excuse me. Some people, take it all the way through and go and pass their exam, and some people don't. But either way, it's fun to meet people. We won't meet anybody in person this year because we've closed that portion. So all remote, 1,100 people. We're streaming that to YouTube as well. Is that what
YouTube Live? Yeah.
Okay, cool. Registration is still open. So if anybody's interested, or somebody who's interested, or maybe you lost your job and you just want to learn more about information security, we don't make it intimidating. It's a lot of stuff, right? But it's not, I think we explain it in a way that it's not overly complex. It'll be dry for some people. I think that's why most people leave, is just dry.
Yeah.
I mean, you can only talk about Bell LaPadula, Bibba, and Red Book, Orange Book so much.
I'm gonna fall asleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what is it? Monday, Wednesday nights, or Tuesday, Thursday?
Mondays and Wednesdays.
Mondays and Wednesdays, 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. Central Time. Registration is FRSecure.com/CISSP-mentor-program. So go out there, sign up. All right. Well, that's pretty much our show. You guys got any shout outs you want to give? We already said a couple, didn't we? We shouted out to, you shouted out to Devani's and to etc. in Waconia earlier. You're muted, Jim, so I am not what you're saying. The mute button, Jim. No, he's not going to unmute himself.
There we go. Sorry.
Okay.
I had kids talking to me in the background. So
I was just watching you. I was wondering how long you were going to talk before you were going to.
You couldn't have said anything, Evan. Just let him go and be like, "What?
Yeah.
Well done, Jim. Good job. No, I'll give a shout out to all the retailers who are trying to make this work in a very weird time. You know, and not to be overly sentimental or emotional, but you know, when I talk to those folks, Evan and Brad, when you see the videos, a lot of times that's a second take, because I talk to them and some of the business owners just break down. They can't understand really how they went from just an amazing economy for them, and they hit a brick wall. A friend of mine went out and had to get a job. He's a business owner. He owns a restaurant. He went out and got another job because the money's not coming in the door. But yet they're still working their butts off to make sure that their employees are somehow getting helped. And, you know, they deserve some kudos. And, you know, everybody wants to help. I think one of the things that you can do is to, if you have the means, buy some gifts from places that depend on that daily turn, and choose to. If you can also just buy them and not use them and let them utilize that cash. But you know, beauty salons are shut down. Restaurants are trying to figure it out, and a lot of places are just experiencing a day. And my shout out would go to them that, you know, we're here for you. And as the state rep, not the information security evangelist, but as a state rep, if I can help, please let me know. My phone number is 076. It's always been published and always will be published. So if I can help out somehow, let me know.
Awesome. Brad, you got any shout outs?
And just, you know, my wife's a nurse, and so all the healthcare nurses and doctors and everyone else supporting the cleaners coming in, everybody that's just putting themselves out there and doing this, and yeah, they're just trying to stay safe.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. Shout outs to all the kind of the unsung heroes, right? The ones that are putting their lives in danger every day for us. We take it for granted a lot. I think, especially in our culture, where we have this sort of tendency to be privileged. You know, we kind of this attitude like you deserve it. And you see that, you know, from the Zoom. You know, we alluded to it when I have a free version of Zoom, and I'm complaining. Right. So we take for granted a lot of people. I mean, even the people at the gas station, you know, behind the counter, they don't get paid a lot of money, and they're having to meet people and touch money, you know, every day in any one of those things. And it's just an extra layer of anxiety, you know, for really serving us. So yeah, big shout outs to all those folks. Thanks for listening. We're a couple of guys who do actually care about you. And in this case, we're three people who do care. Stay healthy, stay sane. We love hearing from you. If you've got anything to tell us or anything you'd like to share, do so, please. unsecurity@protonmail.com. And that reminds me, I've got an email that I'm supposed to tend to there. If you'd rather just do the whole social thing, I'm at Evan Francine on Twitter, and Brad is at Brad Nye. First tweet I've seen from you in a heck of a long time, Brad. Jim is all over the place. He gave his phone number here. He's at Jim Nash MN on Twitter. Jim, you got anywhere else you want people to contact you?
rep.jim.nesh@house.mn or jnash@FRSecure.com.
Awesome. All right. Jim, thanks again for joining us. It was good to see you. And plus you speak gooder than I think I do. Brad's a good speaker in the afternoon too. All right. That's it. We'll talk to you again next week.